Restaurant Unstoppable. What the most successful restaurateurs know that you don't. So you talk a lot about partnerships and communication. Get into really quick, like what the dynamic between you and your brother were and what made this partnership a good partnership from day one.
I mean, it was really hard at first because we didn't set that. I mean, I think that was another thing I would say is, hey, define this relationship more, because we didn't have it defined at all. My brother got a bonus. He's putting the money into the restaurant, and then it's like, oh, I'll be there every day. Well, he physically could not be there every day. And then his actual boss is like actually driving in to check and see if he's there. He's coming in for lunch all the time. Why is your boss here for lunch all the time? He's like, oh, he's coming to see if I'm here, which is crazy in the corporate world. Like, why do you give a crap? Just you care about, but he had a boss who was on him, which is just insane because my brother's a VP at a company. The guy was like one notch above him on VP, like head VP. It was very, very odd behavior. Nonetheless, so he's there on the weekends. And then now what can happen if you work your ass off all week and then this is where you go on the weekends, is it could become a clubhouse. You know, it's like, hey, bring all the people that are our friends and family that work to get this place open, and we'll all hang out, we'll drink, and we'll have a good time. Well, then it's not a restaurant, it's a clubhouse. And it became a clubhouse for a little bit. You're drinking, you're having a good time, but then you're like, this isn't what we should be doing, right?
Yeah. How'd you learn that wasn't what you should be doing?
Immediately I knew it wasn't ideal business because I never saw my owners at my other restaurant jobs that were like ponying up to the bar with their friends.
Yeah.
I knew enough to know that, but at the time you're like, okay, well, let's just figure this thing out first before we create hard rules on life.
Mm-hmm. So getting started, I mean, it sounds like your brother was pretty successful. He had 15 years on you. He had some time to establish some type of some foundation around him, right? Was that part of the partnership? Was he part of was he investing his own money? Were you investing you couldn't have had too much at 22 years old.
We said it pretty clearly. I'm going to give all my sweat equity and give up all my 20s to this. He would come in when he could, and that was it. That was all there was to it, and then growing it from there. And we got the business by store 2.
So did you need outside investment?
Nope.
Okay, beautiful. Why is that important, do you think?
It's ideal. I warn heavily against investors because if it's clearly delineated what the investor is investing in, what their return will be, there's a way it can work. But in a restaurant game, more likely than not, it's not thought up. Someone thinks they're owning a restaurant when they invest in a restaurant, and then they want to have say in that restaurant.
Yes.
It gets really dirty really quick. I give the example of like, if we had an investor and they just said, well, you guys didn't make as much money last month. You know, I see a lot of these college kids drinking Four Loko. You should sell Four Loko. And I'm like, I don't think we should. I'm going to need you to sell Four Loko.
Yeah, and you really don't have much of a choice when your money's not, when your skin's not. I mean, you're putting your sweat equity in, but you don't have any other assets that are really deal breakers. Like you can be replaced, but the physical building, all the ovens, all the things that people own can't. You know, what I'm saying is, like if you own the restaurant, if you put your money in, you really do control everything at the end of the day. So it's really important. Plus, you started small. Was it 1,500 square feet?
Yes. A really small restaurant, and by year 2 we had doubled the size of it and taken over the Singular Wireless, which tells you how long ago this was. Before it was AT&T, it was Singular Wireless with a C, and doubled it. And but my brother, was able to give more time to the restaurant, and eventually by 2010 or so, they wanted to move a lot of their operations to St. Louis, and he said, "I'm not." Took his severance and then was able to fully dedicate himself to the restaurant by 2012, 2013, and then it's me and him operating it.
7 years into it.
Yeah, and I don't want to underplay. It wasn't like we didn't meet or talk about stuff, but I was boots on the ground running the show, making the calls on everything.
Yeah,
doing all the payroll, doing all the marketing, doing all the everything, and then he would be there on a Friday or Saturday night. And then it was back to me doing it.
Yeah, but I think it's important to realize, I think people, when they want to get into this industry, they look at people like you and they say, that's where I need to start. But the truth of the matter is, it took you almost, 7 years to get to the point where you even had a second location. And even before that, you scaled your first location, you doubled in size. Like you stayed, growth comes from the inside out.
Yes.
When I say that, what's going through your mind?
We wanted to open a second store by year 4. We couldn't get a bank to give us the time of day, and we had clean books. And even at that, our bank in the suburb, the bank we were depositing our money at every day was like, we'd love to. And we give them all the stuff they asked for, and they're like, yeah. Well, we went and talked to our president. He doesn't want to do it because you're a restaurant.
Yeah.
Then we go to the big bank. Well, they're a big bank. They should have a lot of money.
Yep.
They're the first, fastest no you'll get.
Yeah. And this is goes back to one of the reasons why I think it's so important to start where you can, to start small. Because if you can afford it at that point, then as you start to do better, that's excess income. That's how you scale. You start putting that money away. And it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
But it happens from cash flow management, knowing what you need to survive, keeping your liabilities as low as possible, and then reinvesting in your business. And that takes a long time.
I think the macro point of all that is, if you look into the restaurant industry as your cash grab, it's profitable. But if you look at it as a cash grab, I'm going to open one, then I'll have 2 or 3 by year 3 or 4. No brainer. We'll staff it. And then I'll have someone run it. You're going to fail. You're going to waste an extreme amount of money. Even if you say, well, I'll pay them the best amount of money, you're not necessarily going to get the best people. You really, truly have to be boots on the ground, especially in a new concept, develop it, really live it, that it gives you happiness just that it exists, not that you're getting money on the return. And at that point, then you could tweak it to the point that you could make it profitable. If you start in as a cash grab, then you really should be buying a franchise and have stupid franchise money.
Yeah.
And when I say franchise, there's not a lot of BS there where people buy.
You're buying a system.
They are, and there's so many. When people say you should franchise, I'm like, I don't think my system is. I'm one of the most systematic guys I know in the industry, and I don't think that I'm in a position for this to be systemized enough for me to sell it to someone. When these people buy a franchise that's a single unit, and the second store is the franchise, it's so inherently stupid. It's like you've never even proven the concept.
Yeah.
You've never even proven the systems, and you're selling them?
Right.
That's like an immensely obese person who went to run a mile, who's now going to sell their system for weight loss to someone else.
I love that analogy. That's so great.